once again. Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the world, even more particularly to all shepherds who are believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in Georgia, in Kansas, Missouri, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Arkansas, in California, in New York, in Pennsylvania, in Canada, Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, Africa, Kenya, Pakistan, Zambia, to the United Kingdom, our brethren in Australia, and also to our brethren in Malaysia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, my dear brothers and sisters. This is our special episode number 30, as the last final warning message just prior to the close of the vision. This time, I would like to re-emphasize again Jeremiah 8, verse 20. Let us read Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 20. All of us agreed that such verse is prophetic, and it was written by Jeremiah before the destruction of the temple of Solomon, written somewhere around 600 BC. And it says, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. So the verse is divided into three close. And the first one is concerning the harvest. Number one, the harvest is past. Second, the summer is ended. And third, it says, and we are not saved. Now, I think all of us will agree that this verse, Jeremiah 8:20, was not yet fulfilled, or the fulfillment of such verse from the time it was written by Jeremiah, it was still unfulfilled, even to this present time. Now, since the admonition in 2SR 289 saying, find your explanation in the bowl, and you have no trouble in knowing the difference between truth and error, and of avoiding the ever-ready trap of deception. And it says, and the difficulty in knowing the difference between truth and error is eliminated. So let us now study closely Jeremiah 8:20 through the explanation given in the Golden Bowl. I would like to begin in the writings of Sister White. Here on Testimonies for the Church, Volume 1, page 50, it says, said he, we want to reach the people. We want sinners to be convicted and become truly repentant before it is too late for them to be saved. Lest they shall take up the lamentation. The harvest is past. The summer is ended. We are not saved. Here's another statement in Testimonies for the Church, Volume 2, 243. It says, may God arouse them before it shall be too late, and they exclaim in anguish, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Here in Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, 353. Every moment now seems to connect itself directly with the destinies of the unseen world. Then let not your pride and unbelief lead you to still further reject offered mercy. If you do, you will be left to lament at the last. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, we are not saved. In Volume 5, 589 and 590, it says, oh, awake, awake, teachers and pupils, before it is too late. So that is the last part of 589 in Volume 5. Oh, awake, awake, teachers and pupils, before it is too late. Awake before you hear from pale and agonized lips the terrible wail. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Here in Volume 9, page 48, it says, Volume 9, page 48, thus they will grow up to the full stature of men and women in Christ, wholesome, cheerful, grateful Christians, led by God into clearer and still clearer light. If this is not their experience, they will be among those whose voices will one day be raised in the bitter lamentation. The harvest is past,
The summer is ended, and my soul is not saved. Why did I not flee to the stronghold for refuge? Why have I threefold with my soul's salvation, and done despite to the Spirit of grace? Here in Volume 8, 252, Testimonies for the Church, Volume 8, page 252, it says, I appeal to them, Volume 8, 252. I appeal to them not to disregard the fulfilling of the signs of the times, which says so plainly that the end is near. Oh, how many who have not sought their soul's salvation will soon make the bitter lamentation. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Here in Volume 7, page 16, it says, at the day of judgment, Volume 7, page 16. At the day of judgment, there comes to the lost a full realization of the meaning of the sacrifice made on Calvary. They see what they have lost by refusing to be loyal. They think of the high, pure association it was their privilege to gain. But it is too late. The last call has been made. The wail is heard. The harvest is past. The summer is ended, and we are not saved. Now, I would like to read this statement in Volume 9, on page 20. It says, are we to wait until the fulfillment of the prophecies of the end before we say anything concerning them? Of what value will our words be then? Shall we wait until God's judgments fall upon the transgressors before we tell Him how to avoid them? Where is our faith in the Word of God? Must we see things foretold come to pass before we will believe what He has said? In clear, distinct rays, light has come to us, showing us that the great day of the Lord is near at hand, even at the doors. Let us read and understand before it is too late. Now, let's read the Shepherd's Rod to us our page 147. Will you, brother, will you, sister, adorn yourself with the righteousness of Christ? Or will you wait a little longer until after the harvest is past? Someone shall utter the following words in great disappointment. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Jeremiah 8:20. Shall you or shall I? Here in 2SR 156 and 157, it says, then some shall be conscious of their doom and shall say, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Jeremiah 8:20. Others shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the words of the Lord, shall not find it. Amos 8, verse 12. When God's people shall have ceased from their God-given work, their answer will be, we have nothing for you. The harvest is past. Salvation has ceased. You are too late. I do fully believe that in this reading, the righteous have a definite understanding when would be the period of the harvest will be ended. And at that time, they will cease their work, their God-given work. Because the statement says, when God's people shall have ceased from their God-given work. Their God-given work, of course, is to preach the gospel, to proclaim the message. But there is an appointed time by which God's people shall have ceased from their God-given work. 2SR page 156 and 157. Now, let us read again the statement in track number 3, page 70 and page 71. It says, the second section of the separation thus being completed, provisionary time is closed, whereupon from the wicked will be heard the horrible wail of doom. It's really hard to imagine that description. Horrible wail of doom. The harvest is past, the summer is ended, we are not saved. Jeremiah 8, verse 20. Then it says, this being the dreadful experience of the tares in Babylon, in the second section of the harvest, there must, as a type, be a similar unprecedented experience for the tares in the Laodicean church in the first section of the harvest. So the statement, clear as crystal, Jeremiah 8 verse 20, must have a double application. The first application is in the church, in the Laodicean church. The second application is in Babylon. And the first application is the type, and the second application is the antitype. In track number 9, page 70 and 71, it says, learning to their terror with the passing of provision, they are forever lost, that they are forever lost. The neglectful will cry out bitterly, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, we are not saved. Here the voice of inspiration use the term, the neglectful. They neglect their God-given opportunity to learn the truth. And of course, I think the focal point of Jeremiah 8:20 is the period of the harvest. And of course, the term neglectful plainly indicating that there is an opportunity to learn the period of the harvest. But they neglect such opportunity. Now let's read another statement in 2SR 186. 2SR page 186. It will be noticed that the close of provision for the church and the one for the world are two different events. The former is a miniature representation of the latter. The scripture for the preceding one is found in Matthew 25 verse 11 and 12. But of the final one we read, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. Revelation 22 verse 11 and 12. At this time, those who were like the 5 foolish virgins will say, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, we are not saved. Jeremiah 8 verse 20. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, shall not find it. Amos chapter 8 verse 12. Now in that reading, plainly telling us that in the type, in the first application of Jeremiah 8:20, it is the foolish virgins that will cry out bitterly, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Who are they? According to the shepherd's rod, they are the foolish virgins. Hoping that all of us will not follow the attitude of the foolish virgins. I would like to read here in 2 TG 46:43. It says, who are wise to understand? Are you, brother, sister? 2 TG 46:43. Who are wise to understand? Are you, brother, sister? Will you act now while there is time? Will you face the picture and get ready to meet the situation? Will you, before the Spirit of God leaves you and the enemy secures final advantage over you, will you realize that as he beguiles the rich with vanities and grinds the poor with caves, he will use every weapon he has to dishearten, discourage, and scatter all who accept the Lord's merciful invitation to his supper. So, we will connect our subject to the invitation of the Lord concerning the Last Supper. So, here in 2 TG, number 44, on page 39, let's read the statement. It says, 2 TG 44, page 39, page 40. When the cry is made, behold, the bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him. All 10 virgins see that the light of their lamps is going out. You see, all the 10 virgins. Therefore, both the wise virgins and the foolish virgins, the light of their lamps is going out. And it says, they see that the message of the judgment of the dead is passing. Quickly then, the 5 wise virgins refilled their lamps with the extra oil which they have stored in their vessels, and go on to meet the bridegroom. But the 5 foolish virgins, those who thought there was no need for extra oil, no need for an extra message, the message of the judgment of the living, find themselves in gross darkness. Yes, they find themselves without the light which the message of the judgment of the living unfolds. Remember the statement, which the message of the judgment of the living unfolds. Upon discovering their foolish neglect, they rush to obtain oil, light on the subject. But in the meantime, the door has been shut. Provisionary time for the virgins, the church has closed. It says, provisionary time for the virgins, the church has closed. When they call for admission, they are politely told by the Lord himself, I know you not. Would you think the church mentioned here, represented by virgin, is the Seventh-day Adventist Church? Is the harlot, or is a harlot still a virgin? Both in the writings of Sister White and writings of Betty Hawker, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, is a harlot. Although I will not focus my attention in that portion, but just a simple question. Can a harlot still be called as virgin? That's why in 1 Thessalonians 6:32, truth is truth and sense is sense. Let us have them both. In the old symbolic code, I would like to read. 2 symbolic code number 1 page 9. 2 symbolic code number 1 page 9. As the shepherd's rod is always put to the highest degree of test to prove its teaching, and the denominations always unquestionably accepted by her members, we are compelled to prove the position taken by the rod, first by the scriptures, second by the spirit of prophecy, and third by common sense. Now, what does your common sense tells you, brothers and sisters? That a harlot, what would you think in your common sense? Does a harlot can still be called virgin? Because that church by which divided only into two classes, wise virgins and foolish virgins, the church is represented by a church classified as virgin. Now, although at this time, I need to focus my attention to the period of time, the period of the harvest. We read several times that harvest is a period of time, having a beginning and ending. Let's read again. Answerer number 2, page 36. It shows that the harvest is a period of time, having a beginning and ending, that during its time, men are saved. Harvest is a period of time. But Jeremiah 8 verse 20, that is the time when the period of the harvest is past. And at that time, the foolish virgins, that is the time that they began to be interested with the message, but not knowing, brothers and sisters, that the harvest is past. And at the time that they learned that the harvest is past, such horrible wail heard from every direction. And of course, I do fully believe it is God who opened their understanding so that they could see what they had been neglected. And that is the reason why we are now studying. Reading again, in tract number 5, on page 74, it says, it will be noted that the 144,000 are called the first fruits, denoting that they are sealed at the beginning of the harvest. Denoting that they are sealed at the beginning of the harvest. Harvest is a period of time, according to Answerer number 2, page 36. It is a period of time having a beginning and ending. But the 144,000 living saints, they are sealed at the beginning of the harvest, not at the ending. The 144,000 are sealed in the first section or the first division, because harvest, which is a period of time, is divided into two divisions. Beginning, according to tract number 5, page 74, the 144,000 are sealed on the first division, which is the beginning. They are sealed at the beginning of the harvest. Now, let's read tract number 3. Here in tract number 3, page 76. Tract number 3, page 76. It says, here we see commanded the observance of 3 harvest rites, the ceremony of the wave sheaf at the beginning of the first harvest. What is the statement? The ceremony of the wave sheaf, that is the beginning of the first harvest. When does the 144,000 are sealed? At the beginning of the harvest. That is very plain in tract number 5, page 74. And what is the ceremony at the beginning of the harvest? The ceremony of the wave sheaf. And what that ceremony of the wave sheaf indicates that the first harvest is finished. There are 2 significance of the ceremony of the wave sheaf. It is offered to indicate that the first harvest is finished. And the second significance, it is offered to indicate that the second harvest will then begins. So here in tract number 3 on page 76, being of cut stalks of grain, the wave sheaf signified fruits to be harvested. And as the sheaf was to be offered before the sickle was put to the grain and gathered into sheaves, it obviously pointed forward to a spiritual harvest of first fruits to be gathered. So there are 2 significance of the wave sheaf. The fruits to be harvested, but the first significance is to gather the first fruits. Pointed forward to a spiritual harvest of first fruits to be gathered. Who will gather the first fruits? Jesus Christ. Let us read 2TG number 44. 2TG number 44, page 37. Who gathers the first fruits? I would like to go directly the answer. The Son of Man, therefore, gathers the first fruits. And we know the Son of Man is Jesus Christ. Now, let us meditate and ponder deeply. What happenstance, what occurrence that did happen, which causes the foolish virgins to become alarmed that probationary time has closed and they had been left unsealed? I would like to read first 2 SR 183 and 184. It says, as the foolish virgins at last came to the door, it is evident that they obtained the oil. What does it mean that they obtained the oil? Learn of the message. So the significance that they obtained the oil, they understood the message. When? When probation closed. Now let's read again. It says, as the foolish virgins at last came to the door, it is evident that they obtained the oil, meaning they learned of the message. But there had been a delay, and delay is really very fatal. I would like to read to you the example here on Patriarchs and Prophets. It says here, by which the voice of inspiration says, delay is very fatal. And it was illustrated in the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Patriarchs and Prophets on page 160. I would like to read this statement. The command was given with startling vehemence. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 160. The command was given with startling vehemence. Escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. Then it says, hesitancy or delay now would be fatal. To cast one lingering look upon the devoted city, to tarry for one moment from regret to leave so beautiful a home would have cost their life. The storm of divine judgment was only waiting that these poor fugitives might make their escape. And I would like to read this reading on page 162, but beginning from page 161. It says, although so greatly favored, 161, although so greatly favored in being called out from the wicked city, she felt that she was severely dealt with, because the wealth that it had taken years to accumulate must be left to destruction. Instead of thankfully accepting deliverance, she presumptuously looked back to desire the life of those who had rejected the divine warning. Her sin showed her to be unworthy of life, for the preservation of which she felt so little gratitude. Then it says, we should beware of treating lightly God's gracious provisions for our salvation. There are Christians who say, I do not care to be saved unless my companion and children are saved with me. They feel that heaven would not be heaven to them without the presence of those who are so dear. Patriarchs and Prophets, 160, 161, and 162. Now, delay and hesitancy is fatal according to the voice of the inspiration. The same with the statement in timely greetings saying that hesitancy or indecisive or inactive, it says in 1TG 39:13. 1TG 39, page 13. It is a terrible thing to disbelieve the word of God or to be indifferent, indecisive, and inactive. 1TG 39, page 13. It says, it is a terrible thing to disbelieve the word of God or to be indifferent, indecisive, and inactive. Now, I would like to read again the statement. To SR page 183. It says, it is evident that they obtained the oil, meaning learn of the message, but there had been a delay. The door was shut and they were left out. Now, why were they unconcerned at first and very zealous at last? The experience in this instance is about the same of that as that of the deluge. While Noah preached the coming of the flood, the world paid little attention to his message, but those who believed went into the ark. It says, but those who believed went into the ark at a given time, and the door was closed. So there was a given time. But not long afterwards, signs of Noah's prediction appeared, And as drops of rain began to fall, the wicked multitude became alarmed and rushed for the ark. But the door was closed, and they were left out. The door that was shut is a symbol showing that provision for the church had closed just shortly after the foolish virgins became alarmed. At last, they were willing to pay the price and buy the oil. But it was not a change of heart, only the fear of losing out. Their course of action had left them without the seal. The man with the writer's inkhorn had passed them by. What a terrible mistake. What a disappointment. Almost saved, but entirely lost. Now, I would like to connect 2SR page 185 and 186. 2SR page 185 and page 186. It says, when the judgment of the living commenced, and the cry was made, they were found without this extra oil in their vessels. They had neglected their Lord's command. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. Why is it that they need to watch? Because they did not know as yet the day and hour when the Son of Man cometh. So the purpose of watching is to know the day and hour when the Son of Man will come. But it is pointing to the visitation of Christ on this earth. The coming mentioned in Luke 18 verse 8. Let's read again, 1SR Packet Edition, page 19. 1SR Packet Edition, page 19. Furthermore, the query, shall he find faith on the earth, is not questioning the number of saints at this particular coming, but rather faith itself regardless of number. And what is the answer given by the voice of inspiration? I would like to read, written by Alonzo Jones. When the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Luke 18 verse 8. He will find but little. And that's why the apostle says that this coming cannot be the visible coming of Jesus Christ. Neither the coming of Christ to deliver the 144,000 living saints. When the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Luke 18 verse 8. He will find but little. Meaning few, very few, knoweth the visitation of Jesus Christ. And that visitation of Jesus Christ, the mission is together with the cherubim, the man with the riper acorn, to sell the 144,000 living saints. Now let me read to you here in 2SR 185. Thus when the wise ones started out to meet the bridegroom, the lambs of the foolish went out, for the judgment of the dead had passed. Brothers and sisters, it points out to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. How could you be able to say that the judgment of the dead had passed unless you know when the judgment that pertains to the dead will be finished? The same with the statement in 2SR 164 saying, unless the close of the judgment for the dead and the commencement for the living be made known to us, we would have no present truth, while the judgment for the living is in session. What does it? That if you have no knowledge when the judgment for the dead close, then you will never know when the judgment for the living begins. And if you will not know, then you will be unprepared to meet the bridegroom. The statement in track number 3, page 54. For when a person's judgment is pending, and he is unaware of the fact, he cannot stand when his case will be investigated. But, of course, the same with the Jewish people. The reality is that the reason by which they did not know, because they choose not to know. Here in 6 BC 1056, no excuse for willful ignorance. 6 BC 1056. No excuse for willful ignorance. I wot that through ignorance he did it, said Peter. But this ignorance did not excuse the action, for they had great light granted unto them. The statement is made that had they known that he was the Prince of Light, they would not have crucified him. But why did they not know? Because they choose not to know. They had no interest to search and study, and their ignorance proved their eternal ruin. They had the strongest evidence on which to base their faith, and they were under obligation to God to accept the evidence He had given them. Their unbelief made them guilty of the blood of the only begotten Son of the infinite God. How much more in our days, my dear brothers and sisters? Now, I would like to read again the statement in 2SR 185. It says, thus when the wise ones started out to meet the bridegroom, the lambs of the foolish went out, for the judgment of the dead had passed. Therefore, it was present truth no more. What is that message by which it was present truth no more. I would like to read to you 2TG number 11. 2TG number 11, page 12. Here is seen that the message which the church has during the period of slumber and sleep is not sufficient to carry her members through to the end. They need an extra message. And I admonish every shepherd's rod believer to read that paragraph seriously, because if you will only honestly study that paragraph, it is not difficult to understand that any message given by God to the church during the period of slumber and sleep is not sufficient to carry the 144,000 down through to the end. And B.T. Hotep died in the period of the judgment that pertains to the dead. He himself testified. Here in answerer number 2 on page 93, it says, although we are still in the time of the judgment of the dead. Answerer number 2, page 93. Although we are still in the time of the judgment of the dead, and we know that that was written in 1944. The prophet testified that they were still living in the time of the judgment of the dead. So the messages that was bestowed by God to Sister White and the messages that was bestowed by God to B.T. Hotep, no, it is not sufficient. But the messages, what I am saying is concerning their understanding, not concerning to the things that they had written. The writings of Sister White and B.T. Hotep are sufficient, together with those writings that they themselves recommended. We don't need any writings after the Shepherd's Rod publications had been written. That is the last publications, the last inspired writings. But the same with the Bible. The Bible is sufficient. The statement in 1TG number 10, page 18, the Bible contained the complete formula of the plan of salvation or the plan of redemption. But when it comes to the understanding, for example, Daniel, John the Beloved, they did not understand all the things that they had written. And it is stated in the great controversy 344, even the prophets who have been favored with a special illumination of the Spirit did not fully comprehend the message that had been given to them. So what is the present truth by which when the judgment for the dead is passed, it is present truth no longer? All of them. The understanding of Sister White and understanding of B.T. Hotep. Now let us go to B.T. Hotep. What is the message that had been proclaimed by B.T. Hotep in his lifetime? To inform all Seventh-day Adventists that there is a judgment that pertains to the living. To explain to all Seventh-day Adventists concerning the great and dreadful day of death. So that is the only message. But to proclaim that the judgment for the living is in progress, it was never been bestowed by God to B.T. Hotep. And that is why the statement in 2SR 164 is very plain. But when our high priest shall begin the atonement for the living, there must be a message of present truth. When our high priest shall begin the atonement for the living. Jesus Christ, the high priest, did not begin the atonement for the living in the days of B.T. Hotep. It is still future. But the statement says, but when our high priest shall begin the atonement for the living, there must be a message of present truth. And the focal point of the message of present truth is urging everyone to lay hold on the Lamb of God, come to the sanctuary, confess your sin to secure your life. So it is a message of repentance. And then it says, unless the close of the judgment for the dead and the commencement for the living be made known to us, we would have no present truth while the judgment for the living is in session. Therefore, the present truth in the judgment for the living, when the judgment for the living is in progress, is not the present truth in the days of B.T. Hotep. Because the present truth in the days of B.T. Hotep is to inform that there is a judgment that pertains to the living. But when the judgment for the dead is closed, that knowledge is no longer present. Why? How could you say there is a judgment for the living? It is already contradictory. That is no longer the present truth. The present truth must be the judgment for the living is in progress. The present truth in the days of B.T. Hotep is to warn the people, to prepare their lives. According to the Shepherd's Rod, the same with the coming of the Messiah. All the prophets warn the people, prepare your lives because the Messiah will come. But that present truth is no longer the present truth when Jesus Christ finally arrived. Because if that is still the present truth, then the result, you will reject Jesus Christ. Because you are still saying, prepare your lives for the Messiah is coming. So that is, brothers and sisters, misleading. No longer present truth. Because you are telling the people to wait for the Messiah, while in reality, the Messiah was already born. The same with the judgment that pertains to the living. It is present truth no longer. Because that message already fulfilled already accomplished its work. And to say the people, prepare your lives for the judgment for the living is coming, then it become misleading. Because the present truth is the judgment for the living is in progress. Why? Because the judgment that pertains to the dead is already past. Now I would like to read to us our page 185. Thus, when the wise ones started out to meet the bridegroom, the lambs of the foolish went out, for the judgment of the dead had passed. Therefore, it was present truth no more, and thus they were left in darkness. Look at the situation of the Jewish people. All of them is still waiting the arrival of the Messiah, not even knowing that the very ones that they crucified, they did not know that that was the Messiah. They were in gross darkness. It says, therefore it was present truth no more, and thus they were left in darkness. At the beginning of the judgments of God, they saw their mistake. When would be the foolish virgins saw their mistake? When the judgments of God began to pour out. The same with the antediluvian world. When the rains began to pour out, everything ceased to be funny. Right? On page number 50, page 15. They laughed, they ridiculed, but when the rain began to pour out, everything ceased to be funny. And try to study this message. You cannot find any error because it is called infallible proof. And if you will neglect, then you choose yourself to be among the foolish virgins. At the beginning of the judgments of God, they saw their mistake and rushed for the ark of safety. But it was beyond their reach, for they knew nothing of the message. And by the time they acquired it, filled their lamps with oil, there had been a delay. The angel had passed through the city, through Jerusalem, the church, the ceiling was finished, and probation for the church had closed. The door was shut. Thus they were left out. Then they came with these words, Lord, Lord, open unto us. But he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Appoint his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. What a disappointment that will be. What is the statement? The ceiling was finished, and provision for the church had closed. When? When the ceiling is finished. And that is why the Shepherd's Rod declared in one SR Packet edition, page 9, and how can one escape the slaughter unless one knows what the ceiling marking is, when it is, and where it is to be? You see, brothers and sisters, there is no possibility that we could escape the slaughter unless we know what the ceiling is, what the marking is, when it is to be, and where it is to be. So to understand the period of the harvest is to understand the period of the sealing. Because the 144,000, they are sealed at the beginning of the harvest. That is very plain, right? Track number 5, page 74. When does the 144,000 are sealed? At the beginning of the harvest. So to understand the beginning of the harvest, that is the period of time by which God will seal the 144,000. And the foolish virgins wait until the harvest is past. Or in other words, they don't bother themselves. But the time will come. What is the statement in White House Recruiter? On page 38, it says, White House Recruiter, page 38. But alas, then like Esau, though they seek it carefully with tears, they shall find no place of repentance. They purchase their oil too late. The door is closed when they reach it. And to their frantic knocking, at it comes the terrifying reply, I never know you. Matthew 7, verse 22. Then is the harvest of the first fruits past. You see? Then is the harvest of the first fruits past. The fruits garnered in, and the tares shut out unto destruction. There in agony, to wail and to gnash their teeth. the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Now, this time, I will introduce to you 3 infallible proofs to show to you, those who are honest and sincere, that such predicted event will be fulfilled this year. Now, let us analyze closely Jeremiah 8:20. Every year, there is a season of summer, right? I remember Genesis chapter 8, verse 20. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. But let's focus only to the season summer, because that is the focal point of Jeremiah 8, verse 20. Summer. Now, to repeat again, I think every one of us will agree that Jeremiah 8:20, there must be an appointed year by which that chapter, that verse will find its fulfillment. And on that specific year, it must be fulfilled during the time when the summer is ended. And of course, in the maximum range, that prophecy must be fulfilled within the period of autumn, because that is the time when the summer is ended, in the period of autumn, or in the season of autumn. And the entire period of autumn begins from September 22 to December 21. Now, I would like to make an illustration. So, the entire period of, talking about summer. The entire period of the summer must be from June 21 to September 22. The period of summer. And then, the entire period of autumn must be September 22 to December 21. Autumn. Therefore, Jeremiah 8:20 must be fulfilled in this period. The sealing of the 144,000 must be fulfilled in this period. Sealing of the 144,000. Because this is the period of summer. So within the period of summer, the sealing of the 144,000 will be accomplished. And then, when the summer is ended, that is also the time by which the harvest is past. So, the harvest must be within the period of summer. When the harvest is past, the summer also is ended. Now, why is it that we are very certain that the sealing of the 144,000 will be fulfilled this year? In this period, the period of summer, we are now in the month of April, spring. From March 20 to June 21, that is the period of spring. And we are still in that period. We did not as yet arrive in the period of summer. And shall you wait until the summer is ended before you will listen to this message? It's up to you. Now, let us push forward to our study. So, I would like to make it very clear that Jeremiah 8:20 is pointing to the time when the summer is ended. Therefore, that is in the period of autumn. And as I've said, let us go to the maximum range, the entire period of autumn. September 22 to December 21. Every year, that is the period of autumn. From September 22 to December 21, the period of autumn. And the Bible cannot be mistaken. Jeremiah 8:20 must be fulfilled within the period of autumn, because that is the period by which the summer is ended. And I would like to remind again in 2SR 118, this grammatical rule is followed in the scriptures, and it is one way to recognize present truth. During the period of winter, from December 21 to March 20, it is illogical to say the summer is ended. No. But rather, you will say the autumn is ended. In the period of spring, it is illogical. It is even more illogical to say that the summer is ended. No, it is the winter that is ended. Everyone will say when the spring equinox will commence, all of them will say, thank you, the winter is gone. The winter is over. Nobody will say, thank you, the summer is gone. The summer is ended. No, it is the winter. So there is no other season by which Jeremiah 8 verse 20 must be fulfilled, must be in the season of autumn. Because the Bible is very plain. The summer is ended. Now, all of us will agree, of course, because of those passages that we read, that the harvest mentioned in Jeremiah 8:20 is a spiritual harvest. And we are studying first the first fruit harvest, the 144,000. But the season of summer in Jeremiah 8:20 is literal. So we have spiritual and literal. And that is why we call it infallible fruit. Why? Because it happens only once in a lifetime that the spiritual and the literal combine together as one. Matches the season, which is literal, matches to the spiritual harvest. And in this study also is a living proof that it was already predicted beforehand that the season and the spiritual harvest will be in opposite, not the literal harvest. Of course, the literal harvest and the season will always go hand in hand. But concerning the spiritual harvest and the season, which is literal, is opposite. So let us now focus our attention to the Shepherd's Rod publications concerning the first harvest, which is the sealing of the 144,000, by which they will be sealed at the beginning of the harvest. Now, let's go back again, brothers and sisters, in 2SR 255. 2SR 255 and 256. These coincidences are perfect with the day of the week and of the month, but the one is a month earlier in the season than the other. The Passover being in the first month and the flood in the second, it has been explained that the Passover is a type of the close of provision for the church, and the closing of the ark a type of the closing of provision for the world. Therefore, there are 30 typical days between one close of provision and the other. If we were given light on how to decipher these 30 typical days, these typical 30 days, it seems it would reveal the exact number of years from the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9, Passover, to the final close of provision. You see, the statement says exact number of years from the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 to the final close of provision. Although the term final close of provision is very broad. Final close of provision to all Sabbath keepers, and final close of provision throughout the whole world, and final close of provision to spiritual Israel. So the term final close of provision is very broad. But let us focus to the statement, brothers and sisters, that the close of provision for the church will be on the month of April. The month of April. Passover. But what specific date from April 1 to April 30? What specific date which is the close of provision for the church? Because April, there are 30 days. We are already proven with absolute fact in 2SR 255, 256, that the close of provision for the church will take place on the month of April. And the close of provision for the world would be on the month of May. 1 month earlier than the other. April, May. But in our reading, let's go back again in 2SR 183. It says, 2SR 183. The experience in this instance is about the same as that of the deluge. While Noah preached the coming of the flood, the world paid little attention to this message. But those who believed went into the ark at a given time and the door was closed. When does Noah entered into the ark? So let's read the statement in 2SR 254. 2SR page 254. Our God commanded Noah with his family, beasts, fowls, and creeping things to enter in the ark on preparation day, Friday. In the self same day entered Noah, as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in as the Sabbath drew on, being the 10th day of the second month. When does Noah entered into the ark? May 10. Brothers and sisters, it says May 10. Now, what is the statement in 2SR page 183? It says, but those who believed went into the ark at a given time, and the door was closed. Then it says, the door that was shut is a symbol showing that provision for the church had closed. I would like to read again. 2SR 183. But those who believed went into the ark at a given time, and the door was closed. The door that was shut is a symbol showing that provision for the church had closed. Now, there was a given time. What is the given time? May 10. And what is the significance of that door that was shut? The door that was shut is a symbol showing that provision for the church had closed. But what is the statement given by the shepherd's rod? The close of provision for the church is 1 month earlier than the closing of the ark. When does Noah entered into the ark? May 10. So what is 1 month earlier? April 10. How many days when the rain began to pour out? 7 days after the door was closed. So we can easily discern that the specific date is April 10 according to the shepherd's rod. Now here's another statement in answerer number 3, page 13. Answerer number 3, page 13. This chart enables us to see that just as one solar season matches another, the vernal equinox matches the autumnal equinox, and the summer solstice, the winter solstice. In like fashion, the sacred feast of one season matches the sacred feast of another season. The 10th day of the first month, the separation of the unblemished lamb from the flock, Exodus 12 verse 3, corresponding to the 10th day of the 7th month. The work of atonement, the separation of the righteous from the unrighteous, signifying in both events a day of judgment, a day of separating the holy from the unholy. You see, brothers and sisters, April 10 and October 10. So I would like to make a diagram. April 10. So I would like to just put blank. October 10. What is April 10? Separation of the righteous from the unrighteous. Or April 10, it is the time by which the 144,000 are separated. Separated from what? From sin and sinners. Now concerning Day of Atonement, it always pointing to the heavenly sanctuary. Concerning April 10, it is always pointing to the earthly sanctuary. So this one is the occurrence on the earthly sanctuary. This one, the occurrence in the heavenly sanctuary. So what kind of separation this one? Because both of them are separation. Separation of the righteous from the unrighteous, or the holy from the unholy. What kind of separation this one? Second section. It is already called the second section of separation. This one also is called second section of separation. But both of them is not the commencement. Both of them is accomplished fact. All the righteous had been completely separated. The same here. All the righteous had been completely separated. When? In April 10, earthly sanctuary. When? October 10, heavenly sanctuary. And we need to focus to the earthly sanctuary because Jeremiah 8:20, that is the occurrence on earth. And of course, the wicked there is the living wicked, indicating that the verse is directly applied to the judgment that pertains to the living rather than to the dead. Because all the wicked dead, they died never experiencing Jeremiah 8:20. So it must be applied only to the living wicked. Although I would no longer remember that exact words by which B.T. Hotep says the living wicked. Logically, it must be the living wicked. Now, here I introduce again the absolute fact. Why is it that we are very certain that Jeremiah 8:20 must be fulfilled this year? Because Jeremiah 8:20 has only one definite year by which such verse must be fulfilled. Because if every year there is a year by which you can apply Jeremiah 8:20, then you could no longer regard it as infallible truth. Because every year it is repeating the same. But the fact is that it will never repeat again. It will happen only once in a lifetime. It will take thousands of years that this occurrence will be repeated again 5,837 years from this year, 2021. And what is that? That April 10, which is the close of the harvest of the first fruit, close of provision for the church. What is the close of provision for the church? According to 2SR 255, 1 month earlier than the closing of the ark. When does the ark was closed? May 10, the time when Noah entered into the ark, and the ark was closed. And what is 1 month earlier? April 10. Moreover, it was definitely stated in Answerer number 3, page 13, that the righteous, all of them, will be separated on April 10. And it is also stated in 2SR 255 and 256, or 254, 255, and 256. Why is it that it is infallible? Because Jeremiah 8:20 is a prediction that April 10 must be in Gregorian calendar, must be September 22 or September 23. The harvest is past. When? When would that event takes place? That you will say the harvest is past. April 10. That is why here it became opposite, the spiritual harvest and the literal season. Because in the spiritual harvest, that is April, Bible calendar. So, this is one of the infallible fruit that only 2021, by which April 10, in Gregorian calendar, is September 23. Now, let us show again that very simple diagram. Jeremiah 8:20. Okay. Jeremiah 8:20. You see, brothers and sisters, Bible calendar, April 10, 2023, that was Thursday. Then, in Gregorian calendar, that was September 23, 2021. And then we survey the calendar every year. We no longer jot down the calendar 6,000 years because it will be a long diagram. But just to show to you that in 2024, Bible calendar, but that is the first one, infallible fruit. Why is it that it is infallible? It will never happen again. You will wait another year for fulfillment. To repeat again, brothers and sisters, this is infallible fruit. Why? Because this year, 2021, if it will not be fulfilled this year, Jeremiah 8:20, you will wait another 5,837 years to repeat again that April 10, Bible calendar in Gregorian, that is September 23. And I don't believe that the world will exist more than almost 6,000 years from this year. Otherwise, the earth would exist 12,000 years, which is contradictory to the Bible and the prophecy of the shepherd's rod. Now look at, brothers and sisters, Bible calendar, April 10, 2024. In Gregorian, that is September 18, 2022. Still, that is within the period of the summer. How could you say the summer is ended? April 10, 2025. In Gregorian, that is September 13. Still within the period of the summer. And if you will add 7 days, September 13, that is still September 20, still on the period of the summer. So the only possibility is these 2 years, 2023, 2024 in Bible calendar in Gregorian, that is 2021 and 2022, because it will repeat again on 1778, 58 AD, 5,837 years from this year 2021, if the prophecy will not be fulfilled this year and the next year to follow, 2022. Now, that is the first infallible fruit to show to you that the year 2021, which is in Bible calendar, is 2023, is the prophetic year as the fulfillment of Jeremiah 8, verse 20. What is the second infallible fruit? The second infallible fruit is concerning Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23, verses 11 and 12, beginning from verse 10. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when ye become into the land which I gave unto you, and ye shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. Verse 11. And ye shall wave the sheep before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. Leviticus 23, verse 10, 11, and 12. And ye shall offer that day when ye have waved the sheep and he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord. Now that verse is a prophecy because it says, when ye come into the land which I gave unto you. And we know Moses died. That prediction is fulfilled in the second section of the Exodus movement, led by Joshua, by which it is on the second day of the feast, by which the wave sheep is offered. And there is only one Bible pattern calendar by which the wave sheep is offered on the second day of the feast, and that is pattern number 2. When was Jesus Christ was resurrected? On the fourth day of the feast, not on the second day. Now let's read the statement in the Old Symbolic Code. 3 Symbolic Code 8 to 10, page 11. It says, now the only disagreement between the shepherd's rod and the Desire of Ages on this subject is that the Desire of Ages says that on the second day of the feast, the first fruits of the year's harvest, a sheaf of barley, was presented before the Lord. The Desire of Ages, page 77, which places the first feast of the Passover on the Sabbath, Numbers 28, verse 17. What is the first feast of the Passover? April 15. That is the first feast. April 15. And B.T. Hotep says that if we will say second day of the feast, then it must be that April 15 fall on Saturday. Then April 16, Sunday, that is the second day of the feast by which the wave sheaf is offered in the presence of the Lord. And that is exactly what happened in the historical event. It was on the second day of the feast, the very first Passover of the first section or the second section of the Exodus. Now let us read the statement given by the voice of inspiration. So let's read. First Patriarchs and Prophets 406. During these years, the people were constantly reminded that they were under the divine rebuke. In the rebellion at Kadesh, they had rejected God, and God had for the time rejected them. Since they had proved unfaithful to His covenant, they were not to receive the sign of the covenant, the rite of circumcision. Their desire to return to the land of slavery had shown them to be unworthy of freedom. And the ordinance of the Passover instituted to commemorate the deliverance from bondage was not to be observed. So it was suspended. In the first section of Exodus, they observed the Passover only three years. First, while they were still in Egypt, and the first 2 years in the wilderness. How do I know that only 2? Because it says, when it was suspended, the remaining years of 40 is 38. 40 minus 38 equals 2. And in this study, it is even more very important to have the chart of the Bible calendar so that you could locate the Bible pattern. The shepherd's rod plainly told us that they came out on Egypt 1491 BC. Let's read 1SR. 1SR page 114 and 115. It says, the prophecy made to Abraham of 430 years ended at the time the children of Israel went out of Egypt, which is according to the Bible chronology, King James Version 1491 BC. 1SR 114 and 115. And 1491 BC is pattern number 4. So we can place now the historical event. So the feast by which Moses celebrated is first 1491 BC, that is pattern number 4. Then second is 1490 BC, that was already in the wilderness, and that is pattern number 5. Then 1489 BC, that is pattern number 6. Now, let us now look at this Bible pattern. Please project the 7 patterns by which the wave sheaf is offered. You see, on pattern number 4, the wave sheaf is offered on the third day of the feast. Third day. And pattern number 5, 7th day. So this one is third day. Then pattern number 5, 7th day. And pattern number 6, 4th day. Fourth day of the third day of the feast, 7th day of the feast, and 4th day of the feast. So Desire of Ages, page 77, cannot be in the first period of the Exodus because they never observed the Passover by which the wave sheaf is offered on the second day of the feast. After this celebration, according to the Bible, as explained by this word prophecy, they were no longer allowed to observe the feast. And it was restored after Moses died. Now let us read 485 in Patriarchs and Prophets. It says, a short distance from Jordan, the Hebrews made their first encampment in Canaan. Here Joshua circumcised the children of Israel, and the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover. The suspension of the rite of circumcision since the rebellion at Kadesh had been a constant witness to Israel that their covenant with God, of which it was the appointed symbol, had been broken. And the discontinuance of the Passover, the memorial of their deliverance from Egypt, had been an evidence of the Lord's displeasure at their desire to return to the land of bondage. In page 613, it says, Gilgal had been the place of Israel's first encampment in the promised land. It was here that Joshua, by divine direction, set up the pillar of 12 stones to commemorate the miraculous passage of the Jordan. Here circumcision had been renewed. Here they had kept the first Passover after the sin at Kadesh and the desert sojourn. Patriarchs and Prophets, page 613. Now, if you will subtract 1491 BC minus 40, then you will fall in 1451 BC. Now, let us now look at the Bible pattern calendar. So, Bible pattern calendar. From 4000 BC, then you can see pattern number 1. So, let us go to 1451 BC. You see, the Bible is accurate. So, Leviticus 23, verse 10, 11, and 12 is a prophecy, and it was fulfilled to the very letter. It was 1451 BC, pattern number 2. So let us go now to the Bible pattern. The wave ship offered. Pattern number 2. The wave ship is offered on the second day of the feast. So Leviticus 23, verse 10, 11 to 12 is a prophecy. Point out to the second section of the Exodus, led by Joshua. And it was on the second day of the feast. And that event is typological. Now, brothers and sisters, let us now ponder deeply. What is the admonition given by the shepherd's rod? In order for us, brethren, to illustrate the spiritual kingdom, track number 3, page 54, the harvest, it says it must be perfectly calculated in order to illustrate the spiritual kingdom. What kind of calculation? Perfect. It must be perfect calculation, perfectly calculated. Otherwise, if it is not perfectly calculated, it will only lead into error instead of into truth. Now, in one symbolic code, number 14, page 11, it says, harvest is the last part of provisionary time. Harvest is the last part of provisionary time. One symbolic code, number 14, page 11. In tract number 3, 1934 edition, it says 6,000 years provisionary time. Tract number 3, 1934, page 71. 6,000 years provisionary time. Therefore, we can easily understand that the harvest must be the last part of provisionary time, which is the 6,000 years. Last part of the 6,000 years. But what last part? Now, let us read again. Tract number 3 on page 76. Here we see commanded the observance of 3 harvest rites. The ceremony of the wave ship at the beginning of the first harvest. The ceremony of the wave ship at the beginning of the first harvest. What is the first harvest? 144,000. 144,000 living saints. When they are sealed at the beginning of the harvest. Tract number 5, page 72. But how could we be able to ascertain clearly that that is the prophetic year? Because according to tract number 5 on page 88, it says, and finally, the only revelation pertaining to and coming at a year and preparing the 4 angels for to slay the third part of men is, says the Lord, the year of my redeemed. Isaiah 63 verse 4. And this year at which his people are redeemed is, of course, the time of the sealing and of the deliverance of the 144,000. It seems that statement is really written this year because we can use it grammatically, saying this year. How do we know? By Bible pattern calendar, predicted beforehand that it must be pattern number 2, typifying the second section of Exodus. Now, this is the question. Why is it, here in tract number 3, on page 56, it says, as his ministry, his sowing of the good seed, the truth began right after his baptism. Matthew 4 verse 17, therefore, to establish the beginning of the parabolic harvest period, we must ascertain the date he was baptized. Why is it that we need to ascertain the date he was baptized? I think the statement ascertain the date he was baptized is not pointing to the month, not pointing to the date, not pointing to the date, because it is already given. Jesus Christ was baptized October 16, 2780. But the bottom line in that statement is the Bible pattern calendar. What Bible pattern calendar? In order for us to establish the beginning of the parabolic harvest period. Harvest of what? 144,000. Why? Because we already studied that it is Jesus Christ who will harvest the 144,000. And it is closely connected to the subject, the 5 symbolical months. But we will focus that portion on the next episode. Now let us look at now the Bible pattern calendar. What Bible pattern calendar by which Jesus Christ was baptized? 27 AD. 27 AD. So let's see the year. You see, pattern number 2, 31 AD is pattern number 6. Would you think that is just a mere happenstance? There are 2 typical events. The year of the baptism of Jesus Christ and the year by which Joshua offered the wave sheep. Second day of the feast. And why is it that we are so certain that this is the very year of the fulfillment of the prophecy? Because of the 6,000 years prophecy. What is harvest? Last part of provisionary time. One symbolic code, 1411. The harvest is the last part of provisionary time. How many years provisionary time? Track number 3, 1934, page 71. 6,000 years provisionary time. Therefore, harvest must be the last part of 6,000 years. But what last part? Of course, there are 2 last part. The last part of 6,000 years, which is the harvest of the first fruits, and the last part of the 6,000 years, which is the harvest of the second fruits. But we focus first to the first fruits. And God informed us that it must be on pattern number 2, second day of the feast. That the harvest of the first fruits cannot begin not until the ceremony of the wave sheep to be offered on the second day of the feast, and that is pattern number 2. And why is it that we are so sure? Because on the 6,000 years prophecy, the shepherd says, from the fall of Adam. Now, we use the maximum range from the time by which the very first offering of sacrificial lamb, and that was in April 16, 3970 BC. You will count 6,000 years. It will end in 2031. Bible calendar, but in Gregorian, that was 2029. Now, let us look at the Bible pattern calendar up to 2031. Only 2031, up to 2031. From 2022 up to 2031. So, beginning from 2022. From 2022 up to 2031. You see 2022, pattern number 2. When it will repeat again, which is pattern number 2, 2029. So if you will say it was not fulfilled in 2022, then it will be fulfilled in 2029. So the sealing of the 144,000 must be in 2030. Just 1 year before the millennium. Just 1 year before the year of Jubilee. It is already contradictory. Where is now the great multitude? So without any doubts, another infallible proof that the pattern number 2 in the 6,000 years provisionary time, which is the last part of the 6,000 years, is the harvest of the 144,000 living saints, must be, brothers and sisters, the sign that was given by God is the Bible pattern calendar, and that is pattern number 2. Then without any doubts, the next year to follow is pattern number 3. How can we rest assured that it is on pattern number 3 that the sealing of the 144,000 will be finished? Let us read the shepherd's rod, 2SR 255. It says, these coincidences are perfect with the day of the week and of the month, but the one is a month earlier in the season than the other. The Passover being in the first month and the flood in the second. Now, our center of attraction must be the cross. 2SR page 142. It says, the symbol reveals that God has had only one church truth in all ages, and that the cross of Christ is the only center of attraction. Now, let us show to them the coincidences. That diagram. So, for example, 208. That 208. Diagram 208, number 2. Let's begin from number 1. Okay. If you could see that diagram, the flood took place on May 2344 BC, and that is the Bible pattern calendar, pattern number 5. April 1 fall on Wednesday. May 1 fall on Wednesday. And May 10, Friday, according to the shepherd. Let's go to number 2. Number 2. Now, I would like to repeat again. The crucifixion of Jesus Christ is 31 AD. That was pattern number 6. April 1 fall on Thursday. You see that Thursday. April 1. So the statement in 2SR 255 that the day, the month, and or the day and the month are perfect, it must be pattern number 3. Look at pattern number 3. May 1 is also Thursday. So the statement in 2SR 255 saying, if we will be given light how to decipher these 30 typical days, then it will show the number of years from the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9, the Passover, to the close of provision. Let us read again the statement. 2SR 255. The Passover being in the first month and the flood in the second, it has been explained that the Passover is a type of the close of provision for the church. See pages 216, 218. And the closing of the ark, a type of the closing of provision for the world. Therefore, there are 30 typical days between one close of provision and the other. If we were given light on how to decipher these 30 days, these typical 30 days, it seems it would reveal the exact number of years from the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9 Passover to the final close of provision. Now, thank God, we have given the light. And the only purpose is to prepare our lives. And how God bestowed that light. First, Jeremiah 8:20. Type and antitype. What is the type? April 10. What is the antitype? May 10. 1 month earlier than the other. Do we have that diagram concerning May 10? May 10. I think that is 2029. But do we have that diagram? I think the same. Jeremiah 8:20. So let us go back to Jeremiah 8:20. And study closely that diagram because that is infallible. You see, brothers and sisters, what is the statement in the shepherd's rod, track number 3, 70 and 71? Jeremiah 8:20 has a double application. Laodicean, the type, Babylon, the antitype. What is the divine rule concerning type and antitype? Exactly fits, perfectly matched, not only to the event but as well as to the time. What time by which the type and antitype must be the same? The date when the summer is ended. But what is the statement in 2SR 255? 1 month earlier than the other. 1 day earlier than the other. What is the example? The flood and the crucifixion. When does Noah enter to the ark? May 10, Friday. And what is 1 month earlier than the other? April 10. But in 31 AD, what is April 10? Saturday. I would like to show to you an illustration so that you could see the perfect comparison given by the Bible as explained by the prophecy. This is the type. Flood, May 10, Friday. The year of crucifixion of Jesus Christ, or year of crucifixion. That was 31 AD. What is April 10? Saturday. So that is the type. So the first occurrence is the flood, and the second occurrence is the year of crucifixion. But April is earlier than, 1 month earlier than May. But Friday is 1 day earlier than Saturday. Now look at the antitype, because B.T. Hotep says, pointing to the close of provision in the church and also in the world. Jeremiah 8:20. April 10 in Gregorian, that is September 23. What day is that? September 23, 2021. Is it Thursday? Then May 10, by which in Gregorian it is September 22. September 22 to 2027. Let me see again. This one is Thursday. Then September 22, 2027. That was Wednesday. You see, the illustration is perfect. 1 month earlier than the other. April 10, May 10. This one is earlier because September 22. This one is September 23. This one is earlier because this one is Wednesday. This one is Thursday. And again, brothers and sisters, May 10, by which in Gregorian calendar is September 22. Jeremiah 20, the diagram. It will repeat again on September 22, 78, 64 AD. Still, you need 5,837 years. So, ponder deeply, brethren. I would like to repeat again. Jeremiah 8:20 is prophetic, biblical prophecy. And it cannot be mistaken. Jeremiah 8:20 is the close of provision for the church. And Jeremiah 8:20 is the close of provision for the world. Type and antitype. And you see how miraculously, for me it is a miracle. Because if you will apply it in literal term, now, for example, you will say April 10, brothers and sisters, the close of provision for the church. If this April 10, brothers and sisters, will fall on spring, because the season of spring must be from March 20 to June 21. That is the season of spring. Now, April 10 and May 10, both of them is within the season of spring. Then if that is the case, how could the Bible say that the harvest is past when the summer is ended, while April 10 and May 10 occur before the summer begins? The summer will be on June 21 to September 22. Summer. Now, it is illogical. You will say, when would be the close of provision for the church? According to the shepherd's rod, April 10. Now, when would be the close of provision for the church? According to the Bible, Jeremiah 8:20, when the summer is ended. So how could this be fulfilled? If April 10 will fall on the season of spring, at the time when the summer did not yet begins. So you will say, April 10, close provision of the church. Then on, for example, April 11, or let us go to the maximum, April 10 to April 22, the entire period of the Passover. Still, April 23 is still in the season of spring. Then you will say, the harvest is past, meaning the Passover is finished and the summer is ended. How could it be ended that it was not even started, the summer? So you see, Jeremiah 8:20 is the answer of those people saying, brother, how could it be that the Passover took place in the season of summer? What we know is that the Passover week must be on the season of spring. Yes, anciently. But as the time goes on, it was predicted beforehand when God allowed the calendar to be changed, introduced the Gregorian calendar. God knew it beforehand that will be the occurrence. Therefore, God put it in Jeremiah 8:20. And since it will happen only once in a lifetime, to let us know that Jeremiah 8:20, there must be a specific year by which that verse must be fulfilled. There is no other year except the year of 2021. Because the year 2022, that Passover is no longer sealing, but rather slaughtering. Would you think the statement in the shepherd's rod, the Passover is the sealing of the 144,000, and the statement, the Passover is the slaughtering, occurred the same year? Ponder deeply. Now, I would like to read to you. White House Recruiter, page 24. White House Recruiter, page 24. With these solemn words, the Lord warns that the slaughter, antitypical Passover, the antitypical Passover. When would be the day of slaughtering? The antitypical Passover. Now, if you will be saying that, for example, I would like to read first another passage, that the sealing of the 144,000 is the antitypical Passover. What is our packet edition? Page 56. It says, accordingly, one is our packet edition, page 56. Accordingly, the antitypical Passover will take place in the time of the first fruit harvest, the sealing of the 144,000, the first fruits, the first to go into antitypical Jerusalem, the first to stand on Mount Zion with the Lord. One is our packet edition, page 56. Accordingly, the antitypical Passover will take place in the time of the first fruit harvest, the sealing of the 144,000. I will no longer read the Bibles for prophecy that the Passover consists only 7 days celebration. Now, for example, this is 2023 Bible calendar, 2023. Passover from April 14 to April 22, Passover week. Would you think this year, 2023, which is the Passover week, there are two occurrences that will be fulfilled, sealing and slaughtering? Now, think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters. April 14, are we saying that the sealing of the 144,000 is shorter than 7 days? Because the slaughtering is 7 days. The slaughtering is 7 days. The entire period of the Passover week. Now, where is now the sealing here? The statement, the sealing of the 144,000 is in the Passover week. If the Passover week, which is the slaughtering, is also the Passover week, which is the sealing. How many days the slaughtering? 7 days. The entire Passover week. So where is now the sealing? It's easy to understand, brothers and sisters, that the Passover week, by which the 144,000 are sealed, is the year that precedes the Passover week, which is the day of slaughtering. And that is why the acceptable year of the Lord is followed by the day of vengeance. The day of vengeance and the acceptable year of the Lord are two different years, one following the other. Now, how can we rest assured that the year 2022 is the day of slaughtering? If we can establish the absolute fact that the year 2022 is the year of his slaughtering, then we can establish the absolute fact that the year 2021 is the day of the year of the sealing of the 144,000. I would like to read first 1 SR 154. The day of vengeance in Isaiah 61 verse 2 follows the year. The day may be prophetic, which in that case would mean a literal year. 1 SR 154. So the day of vengeance followed the year of my redeem. What is the year of my redeem? In tract number 5, page 88. The sealing of the 144,000. I would like to read to you the old symbolic code. 3 symbolic code, 8 to 10, page 9. 3 symbolic code, 8 to 10, page 9. What like and how far? Question number 178. What will the slaughter in the churches be like? Will it involve the outside world? Answer. The slaughter of Ezekiel 9 is the antitype of the Passover in Egypt, and therefore it will be like it. Read Exodus chapter 12. And what is the divine principle of type and antitype? Exactly fits not only to the event but as well as to the time. When does the slaughtering in Egypt occur? It was given by the Shepherd's rod, 1491 BC. Now let us look at the Bible pattern of 1491 BC. 1491 BC. Look at, that is pattern number 4. 1491 BC, pattern number 4. Now let us look at 2024 AD. 2024. You see, 2024, pattern number 4. Now, let us now look at April 14, 2024 in Bible calendar and to see in Gregorian. April 14, 2024. You see, brothers and sisters, September 22, 2022. There is no doubt, brethren, the year 2022 and 2021 is the last 2 remaining years. These 2 years are prophetic. And we can rest assured that World War II will be resumed, brothers and sisters, this year, 2021. But what would you think when World War II will be resumed? Probation closed. At that time, the 144,000 were already completely sealed. We will show to you in that subject. Because we as human beings will not believe the message not until we see the judgments are falling. Although, if you are only willing, honest, and sincere, you can see the light. Because it could no longer be altered. It could no longer be changed. So I would like to make a short summary in this episode so that we can move another subject on the next episode. What are those infallible proofs? The infallible proofs is Jeremiah 8:20. That it is impossible, happens only once in a lifetime, that the summer and the harvest fulfill the same time. And there are 2 harvests, harvest of the first fruits and the harvest of the second fruits. When would be the harvest of the first fruits? The Passover on April. When would be the harvest on the second fruits? The Passover on May. Now let me read to you tract number 8. Here in tract number 8 on page 28, it says, tract number 8 on page 28. Since both of these cleansings, moreover, took place at the feast of the Passover, and since too, all who had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, 2 Chronicles 30 verse 3, Exodus 12 verse 3 to 6, were forbidden to participate in the Passover in the first month, but were permitted to prepare for it and to celebrate it in the second month. Numbers 9 verse 11, 2 Chronicles 30 verse 13. Thereby is typified the purification of the church into sections, thus showing still again that there are 2 gatherings, 2 sealings, 2 separations, 2 companies, first fruits and second fruits. You see, brothers and sisters, the sealing of the first fruits, 144,000, is during the Passover week. The sealing of the great multitude which no man could number is still on the Passover week. But the sealing of the 144,000 is the Passover week on the first month. And the sealing of the great multitude which no man could number is on the Passover on the second month. 1 month earlier than the other. The same with the close of provision. But it was stated, Jeremiah 8 verse 20, that it must be that April 10 and May 10 must be during the summer season. Because when the summer is ended, the harvest also is past. Therefore, the harvest and the summer go hand in hand. So Jeremiah 8:20 is the strongest evidence that in the judgment that pertains to the living, the Passover could not be on spring. As some think that, no, you are wrong, brother. Why is it that you are saying that the Passover week occurred on the season of summer? No, it is on the season of spring. No, you are the one which is wrong. Because we are now in the fulfillment of the prophecy. Because the Bible calendar is restored. If the Bible calendar will be restored on 2000 22, then the event is already in the past. Because the only year by which the harvest and the summer go hand in hand is this year, and there is no other year to follow. You will wait 5,837 years, which will never happen again. And miraculously, not only April 10, but as well as May 10, both of them occurred in the time when the summer is ended, but 1 month earlier than the other, 1 day earlier than the other, and the date, the one is earlier than the other. The other is April, 1 month earlier than the other is May. But they need to be both the same date in the Bible calendar. April 10, May 10. Now, how could you say that the date is 1 day earlier than the other? It must be in Gregorian, not in Bible. Because in Bible calendar, both of them is 10. Then you cannot apply the statement earlier than the other. But how could you apply 1 month earlier than the other? Is it Bible or Gregorian? It must be Bible. Because in Gregorian, they must be fulfilled the same month. So the statement 1 month earlier than the other, pointing to Bible calendar. April, May. But the statement 1 day earlier than the other, although it can be applied both, Bible and Gregorian. But the date is earlier than the other, it must be applied only in Gregorian calendar. The other is September 22, the other is September 23. The other is Wednesday, the other is Thursday. The other one is April, the other one is May. And the absolute fact is that there is no other year, brethren. Our duty is only to proclaim the message, and it cannot be mistaken. This message cometh from heaven. Perfect revelation of Jeremiah 8, verse 20. To let everyone know, do not wait until September 23, 2021. Because September 23, 2021, that is the time that you will say, the summer is ended and the harvest is past. The fulfillment of Jeremiah 8:20. The summer is ended, although the same with the occurrence in the flood. From September 23, there are still 7 days. The same in the days of Noah. May 10, 7 days pass. That is the time that they mourn. Everything ceased to be funny. The situation ceased to be funny. So from September 23, then up to September 30, then in Bible calendar, in Gregorian calendar, October 1, that is the time. October 1, 2021, that is the time that the foolish virgins will say, they will realize that the harvest is past, the summer is ended, we are not saved. Brethren, we are running out of time and hoping that God would bless us and would help us. We'll continue the subject in our next episode. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you. Have a beautiful, wonderful evening.